On offense, 23 carries, 139 yards, 3 touchdowns, 5 catches for 31 yards, 1 touchdown. Broke the franchise record for touchdowns in the season. Jahmyr Gibbs.
Appreciate y'all boys. Couldn't do without y'all. Love y'all.
We got a special group, man, and this has been coming a long time. That's a lot of hard work, and we are the #1 seed with a bye, gentlemen. Great job.
Fantasy Football Happy Hour with Matthew Berry, served by Applebee's.
Welcome to the Fantasy Football Happy Hour. That's right, Jahmyr Gibbs, Sonic Matthew. Sonic. Drinks for free. The #1 seed Detroit Lions. Your Detroit Lions.
Yeah, Jahmyr Gibbs can drink for free. Jahmyr Gibbs is an elite premier running back. Jahmyr Gibbs had a great game last night. I don't know if you guys heard it, but at the very top of the show, we played sound from Lions head coach Dan Campbell. And he's there dressing all of Gibbs' teammates, his friends, his colleagues, everyone in the room. He wants to praise this man. He wants to give him a game ball. And does he call him Sonic? He does not. He goes Jahmyr Gibbs. There he goes. Which is clearly what they call him in the locker room. No one calls him Sonic except you two idiots and a couple of dumb media members that have bought into this, clearly manufactured nickname.
I think it's an age.
It's not like people in the Clippers locker room are calling Kawhi Leonard, "Oh, hello, the Claw." Like no one's saying that. James Harden's like, "Oh, good game, Claw." That's not how it works.
It might be.
No, it's
you
not.
don't know that.
You don't always just call people by their nickname.
Of course you do.
Nah, come on.
No.
Yeah, you got to take a loss on this one.
How many times
Sonic,
have we seen? I see Connor in the hallway, and I'm like, "What's up, hair?" Come on, all the time. It's absolutely. People call you by people call others by their nicknames all the time.
Yeah.
Make no mistake.
Yeah.
Anyway,
it's tough start to the show from Matthew.
Yeah, I will just.
What's going on with the wardrobe
clear.
here?
Listen,
the green under the commander's maroon.
Well, it was
just doesn't fit at all.
Yeah, whatever.
It's like you just opened that up for Christmas and put it on.
The
jersey.
The jersey. No,
Yeah.
I mean it's Victory Monday. It's the jersey I always wear.
It's the green underneath.
It's the green undershirt.
Oh, the green undershirt.
Yeah.
Well, I just, it's. I didn't have time to get a different undershirt because I was in Detroit at 1 a.m. this morning. I was in Detroit. At 4 a.m. this morning, I was driving to the airport in Detroit, and at 6 a.m. this morning, I was flying into New York. So I'm exhausted, is what I am, because we're doing this at 10:30 in the morning. So.
You look like Jimmy McNulty after a tough night on The Wire in season 5.
Might have.
Bunk hours.
It's basically your aesthetic right now. Amplified by this ridiculous green undershirt.
I have to tell you, McNulty looked rough pretty much every season of The Wire. As I've said, McNulty's the worst character on the show. He's by far the worst character. Of all the major characters, he's the worst character on The Wire.
Yeah,
his arc just tails off the more
he's
the
not.
show
He's
goes
the
on.
least interesting.
Yeah.
He's
fair. But necessary.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Who's your favorite character?
I'm a Marlowe guy.
Pretty
Marlowe
good.
That's a good question.
And Omar.
I don't know.
I
think Bunk is the dark horse.
Bunk is pretty good.
He's up there for me.
I mean, I like Avon Barksdale. Was always,
he's a legendary.
You strike me as the Lieutenant Rolls.
You know what? I came back for this.
Yeah. We couldn't wait to see you today.
Clearly.
When we got on the call and heard that you were on your way back from Detroit in the middle of the night, essentially, we were very excited for this show. Instigator 1 and 2. All right, let's jump into the Rotoworld Player news. We got a lot today. Weekend Warriors coming your way. We're going to talk a little NFL draft order now that the top picks are all set. But let's jump into the Rotoworld Player news because the #1 seed last night didn't necessarily live up to the hype in terms of the drama. A phenomenal performance for the Lions at home as they clinched things on the back of Jahmyr Gibbs. You heard all the stats from Dan Campbell at the top of the show. We got to hear more from Campbell on a heroic Jahmyr Gibbs performance.
I felt like he gained steam as the game went on. I thought he got better and better and better. And, you could really feel it after that last stop we got in the red zone on the 4th down stop, and that next carry he has where he just breaks it down the sideline. You could feel it. So he was big for us, and we felt like he was going to need to be big for us to win that game. He was kind of all those guys needed to play well for us, but we felt like Gibbs could somewhat be the X factor here.
No David Montgomery and none necessary in this one. Jahmyr Gibbs with a workhorse role here, 23 carries. Yes, Matthew?
I was just going to say, no, you look at this list, and it's just crazy to think about the fact that no one had more touchdowns from scrimmage this year than Jahmyr Gibbs. Like at the beginning of the season, if we said, Derrick Henry's one of the leaders in this, you're like, I get that. Josh Jacobs, Kyren Williams, Saquon Barkley, you're like, okay, fair enough. Obviously, you figured Bijan and Jalen Hurts would probably be there if Algier didn't steal some. Jamar Chase, you're hoping, but you're not shocked about that. James Cook, I think, is surprising on that list coming into the year. And Jahmyr Gibbs, and I think the argument, quote unquote, against Cook and Gibbs is somewhat similar, which is that they are fast, smaller backs, and you don't expect them to be in scoring position often. To me, the craziest part about Gibbs is twofold. Number one is that in addition to being the leader in touchdowns from scrimmage, it's like for much of the year he had David Montgomery taking touchdowns away. Like it's not like David Montgomery had a bad year. David Montgomery scored a lot of touchdowns as well, and so for Gibbs, now again, he gets 4 in the last week, but still an unbelievable year about Gibbs. The other thing is, if you guys remember Gibbs' rookie year, and Connor, I'm curious if this was sort of the knock on him coming out of college, but the way Detroit always phrased it was he was going to be a third down back, a scat back, a change of pace guy, a guy that they would try to get in space and use his speed, but not a guy that would have 28 touches in a divisional matchup is what he had. I mean, he was a workhorse. He was Derrick Henry-esque, but he's not built at all like Derrick Henry.
Yeah. No, I think that if David Montgomery didn't exist and it was just the Gibbs and Craig Reynolds show, I think Jahmyr Gibbs would be the #1 pick in fantasy drafts next season. And he would be considered and talked about in the same breath as Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry are probably going to finish. Saquon will win Offensive Player of the Year. Derrick Henry probably comes third behind Jamar Chase, but Gibbs would be right in that discussion. He's that level of talent. He's had that kind of year. And also, the past couple of weeks, he's shown that he can handle that workload.
Yeah, he's my top 50 overall, my way too early top 50 overall for 2025 is up on rotoworld.com right now. You can read it. Go to the Week 17 love-hate. It's in that intro if you want to check it out. And I have Gibbs as a first-rounder. Yeah. You know, as a first-rounder next year. Yeah, I mean, he's just nothing short of phenomenal. I thought the Lions overall played really well. Jared Goff finishes the season as QB7. And I think the Lions they answered a lot of questions this year, right? So Jahmyr Gibbs, can he be a lead back? Can he be a guy that can handle a massive workload? Obviously, check. Can Jared Goff be a consistent fantasy force even when he has to play outdoors, even when he has to play in bad elements or, quote unquote bad weather? Yes, check and check. Again, QB7, second in passing yards, fourth in passing touchdowns. And can Amon-Ra continue to get touchdowns this year, which he did, second straight year of double-digit touchdowns for him? Can Jameson Williams break out this year? Yes, asked and answered. I mean, I feel like the Lions just answered a ton of questions this year.
Yeah, a big night for their pass catchers. Well, at least solid night. Even with all the touches Gibbs had, St. Brown still catches 6 passes, 77 yards. Laporta catches all 7 of his targets for 63 yards. On the other end of it, though, the same can't be said for the Minnesota Vikings. That Aaron Glenn just called a phenomenal game for this Lions defense. Sam Darnold only completes 18 of 41 passes, 166 yards, 10 yards on 3 carries, Jay, and obviously that had a huge trickle-down effect on all their pass catchers that really struggled. Yeah, so question for you, Connor. So the thing with Sam Darnold this year has been that he holds the ball for a very long time. Right? I think it's only like Lamar Jackson and Jalen Hurts who hold the ball longer, and that's so these intermediate routes can develop in Kevin O'Connell's offense. Aaron Glenn, what seemed like he was doing last night was just, okay, we're going to play man coverage and we're going to blitz. And our blitz is going to get there quicker than 3 seconds it takes for you to get the ball off. And it just seemed like they had no answers whatsoever the entire game. Yeah, and honestly, Glenn did a great job, too, of mixing up what the fronts looked like, so Darnold wasn't reading the blitz. And like you said, heavy man coverage, but you could change what the coverage is going to look like pre-snap. So Sam was not seeing the coverage well pre-snap as they rotated it, and then the fronts are different. So, yeah, I know they're going to blitz, but which way is it coming from? I can't make the adjustments on the offensive line. And like you said, when everything is schemed open for you, Darnold is a guy, the biggest criticism of him has always been, can he play fast enough? And all year he has. Last night he finally ran to a buzzsaw.
Well, and by the way, he was so rattled that even when they did get somebody, I mean, I can't. So one of my bets on Football Night in America last night, as part of my parlay, was anytime touchdown for Justin Jefferson.
Yeah.
He got open in 3 straight end zone looks, and they couldn't get on the ball. And you're like I was sitting there going nuts. Me and producer Damien are watching this, and we're going like, oh my God, like
just throw the ball.
Just get him the ball. This is like, so it was just incredibly frustrating. Like, even when he had guys open, he couldn't get it to it. They didn't take any deep shots, really, to Jordan Addison. I know Jefferson had a quote-unquote okay game, but it didn't really ever feel like he made an impact the way that we've seen Jefferson sort of take over a game. They just couldn't seem to get anything going on offense. And, when they had opportunities to make plays, it was just a bad day at the office for the Vikings all around. Jay, do you think there's a lot of controversy around whether Sam Darnold should be eligible for Comeback Player of the Year? He's one of the top 3 betting favorites on DraftKings. Do you think, we can debate whether or not he should be eligible, but does this game affect that as well? Because this is a game that everyone watched. National TV for the number 1 spot, and he was as bad as he's been all year.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly doesn't help, and he wouldn't have won over any new voters. If you were going to vote for Darnold, I'm not sure you're abandoning him off of one bad game. Like, he still went 14-3. He's still one of the best stories of the season. I do think it's enough to tip it into where I expect Joe Burrow now will win that award. I would make him the favorite. I think Darnold is still live, and I'm not sure, but it's such a nebulous thing. There's so much ambiguity that I don't have much confidence either way on who's going to win, but I think it's pretty close. I would probably lean Burrow because the intention of the spirit of the guidelines is to reward more injury players, even though I don't really understand Burrow's comeback story when he was 3rd favorite for MVP, and maybe the award should go to more like the J.K. Dobbins of the world.
J.K. Dobbins, to me, it's clearly J.K. Dobbins. Sam Darnold is, by the way, it's an amazing story career arc-wise, but if you think about it, here's what, and I saw a thread that you were in, and somebody on Twitter commented it, and they had the exact right take, which is this. In essence, Sam Darnold didn't come back from anything last year. Sam Darnold was the backup quarterback on a team that went to the Super Bowl. He just didn't get a chance.
It's like a redshirt year.
It's like a redshirt year. He was the backup nothing bad happened. He was the backup quarterback on a team that went to the Super Bowl, and the guy in front of him stayed healthy all year. Then he got an opportunity at a starting role this year, and he's blossomed in it, so it's great. But like, the comeback story for Sam Darnold is the career.
Yes.
But that's not what the award is. The award isn't the guy that's banged around for 5 or 6 years and then suddenly blossoms. It's like, I don't know.
I mean, Geno Smith is the exact same thing, and he won the award. So, I mean, you can debate the merits of the award. But, I mean, Darnold didn't do himself any favors last night. And his whole thing is like, his comeback story is he exercised the ghosts, but the ghosts kind of came back a little bit last night.
They do. Do you think this hurts Kevin, real quickly, do you think this hurts Kevin O'Connell's head coach of the year?
No,
Because I thought he got
outcoached.
He got outcoached.
Again, the team had a win total of 6.5. They went 14-3. I think that he has banked enough goodwill. I think Dan Quinn,
Commanders had a win total of 6.5 as well, and they just won 12 games.
Yep.
With a lot less
14.
With a lot worse. I would argue the Vikings have top to bottom much better talent. The Vikings were a playoff team. They just lost their quarterback.
Yep.
I mean, that's my argument. The Commanders were.
It's a better conversation than I think the markets are making it right now.
I think Kevin O'Connell will win because I think the candidates behind him, it's going to be a fractured field. Some people will go Quinn, some will go Campbell, some will go Reed, Payton. I think Kevin O'Connell will be just top 2 on almost every ballot and will win that way.
All right, guys, and another not as interesting game in terms of the stakes, but a thrilling overtime game. The Panthers get their 5th win of the season. They beat the Falcons in overtime. Bryce Young was honestly awesome in this game. 251 yards, 3 touchdowns. He also had 5 carries for 24 yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground. We got to hear from Bryce Young on the win and just the potential of this team going forward with him as the guy.
For me, it's super encouraging. Again, I in the offseason, still going to look at stuff to improve on. Obviously as a team, we're not where we want to be right now. It was a great day, and, it proves what we can do. We have to be consistent. We have to keep going. There's definitely work to do individually as a team in the offseason, but being able to end this way is it's a great way to cap off this year.
Since week 12, Bryce Young is the 8th best quarterback in fantasy football. I think the underrated part of his game is the mobility, right? So he gets the 2 rushing touchdowns in this one, but also 24 rushing yards. And, that's not a fluke. We've seen him get 20, 30 rushing yards ever since he came back from, his benching or whatever you want to call it. And he looked awesome against by the way, in week 18, a lot of the performances are somewhat skewed because guys are playing with different motivations and you're not always but they were facing the Falcons that needed to win to keep their playoff hopes alive. This was a very motivated Falcons team that had already seen him once. They played the Panthers once. And I don't remember if Bryce was the quarterback the last time they played Atlanta. But he was great.
He was great. He's playing with just a ton of confidence. And it felt like at the end of the game, it was like, the Falcons need to try win this in regulation because they can't give the ball to Bryce Young in overtime.
Right. There's no
By the way,
answers.
I've never seen anyone worse at managing the end of games than Raheem Morris with the clock stuff. It's like, why are you snapping the ball with 20 seconds left on the play clock when there's 50 seconds left in the game? You don't want to score now and give them another drive. You should be running this down until it's the final drive of the game. I just don't understand that at all.
I'm sitting here trying to think if there's anyone worse than Raheem Morris. I mean, Mike McCarthy's pretty bad. There's a few candidates. You know, Eberflus is up there, but he's no longer a coach. But I don't know.
It's not great. But anyway, Bryce Young, I mean, he's clearly the starter next year going into Carolina.
Yeah.
Do you think that he's just going to continue on with this, or do you think it's kind of a blip just going up against end of season?
No, I mean, this guy was the #1 overall pick for a reason, and he was kind of mocked and laughed at after one bad year because he's small. You hear him talk. He's not like this, crazy, run through your face kind of quarterback. He's a more
Not Dan Campbell.
He's a more, level-headed, quiet kind of guy, but he could play.
Do you feel vindicated because going into that draft, there was a lot of debate about his size and should Stroud be #1, should somebody else? And you said, I remember you saying, Bryce Young's my #1 guy. I think he is an outlier. I get all the questions about the size, the hand size, the height, all of it. I think he's an outlier because of his skills, his football intelligence. And do you feel vindicated now?
I feel better. I want to see next year play out in the right way and get this guy a #1 wide receiver, whether that's Xavier Legette growing, whether that's them getting someone. They should make a serious play for T. Higgins, by the way. But yeah, no, I feel much better. When you see him in a structure that Dave Canales builds, he had it for Baker Mayfield, now he has it for Bryce Young. It goes to show you what young quarterbacks do within actual real structures.
This is 2 months now of him outplaying Stroud.
Right, this has been 2 games. Yeah. Like, at some point you have the combo of, like, no, this is a bigger sample size, and it's going to get better around
And
him.
regardless of whether he's better than Stroud, worse than Stroud, the fact of the matter is that he is no longer – a year ago people were calling, well, this might be a Jamarcus Russell level bust. And now you're like, Panthers might have a real quarterback, might have a legit quarterback. Again, he's been nothing short of fantastic since week 12.
I think the Falcons have a legit quarterback as well. Michael Penix over 300 yards, 2 touchdowns. It's just the big throws, Jay, with Michael Penix. He's going to have his misses. You're going to live with those misses. But the big throws he can make, especially to Drake London, that is looking like his new Rome Odunze connection there. I mean, the Falcons have to be feeling great about this pick.
Now the Falcons, it feels like an NBA offense that now has like 3-point shooters and just the floor is spaced, and it was just so in the mud with Kirk Cousins and everything was short and he was so in his own head. And now just this connection with Drake London, who's finally been kind of activated as a deeper threat. Penix doesn't win the game, but ultimately I think shows enough that he looks like clearly the guy going forward.
No Darnell Mooney in this game, but Drake London, once again, Detective Drake London, did not give us a bird up, but he got a 49% target share. He's had 3 starts with Michael Penix under center, 40% target share in each of them.
Crazy.
Like, it's unbelievable. Drake London on the short list for next year's ride or die. Like, I think you can make an argument, like, he should be there. I need to nail next year because Kyler did not work out.
Well, the safest pick for next year might be Bijan Robinson, who I assume will be going potentially #1 in drafts next year, who is just an absolute monster again. Goes 28 for 170, 2 touchdowns, 2 catches for 3 yards. He obviously can develop on that part of his game, Connor. But I think Bijan, I've never seen a running back turn like 1-yard losses into 6-yard gains the way that Bijan does. He just moves like no one else.
Right, and he's got the size, the workhorse size. He moves so well. He's got elite vision. And now you see an offense that has a threat of throwing the ball down the field, Matthew. There's more space for Bijan Robinson. This offense can be genuinely like scary. You're looking at a lot of fantasy weapons next year in this offense.
Not only fantasy weapons, but you think about Bijan, Drake London, Michael Penix, like they're all young. And if the Falcons ownership will give this coaching staff time, I'm not the biggest Raheem Morris fan, but like Zach Robinson's offense seems to like finally be clicking down the stretch here as well. And the other thing on Bijan Robinson, like Tyler Algier still didn't disappear, and yet this year Bijan Robinson averaged over 21 touches a game, finishes as RB3. I'm as a top 5 pick next year overall. Like, and there will be some drafts where he goes #1 overall. I have Chase at #1 overall for me, but Bijan's right there.
Yep.
Our next game, the Saints tried to give the Bucs a scare in this one, but the Bucs hang on. At the end of the day, the Falcons lost. It ended up not mattering too much, but for some incentives, it did. Baker Mayfield, 20 of 31, 212 yards, 2 touchdowns. He throws a pick. He also ran for 68 yards in this game. But most importantly, Mike Evans gets 9 of 13, 89 yards, gets it right at the buzzer. Baker spoke after the game on getting Mike Evans over that key 85-yard mark.
Yeah, I mean, the conversation was like, all right, well, obviously we can't turn the ball over, can't give them another chance, but how do we want to formate this play to get Mike the ball to where he can't get double covered? And that was what we came up with, and Mike did the rest.
What were your thoughts when Bucky scored in that play rather than dropping down at the 5 or 6 yard line?
We won the game, great, but now I'm going to be the guy that didn't get the 1,000 yards. So now he's going to have to play 11 more years after that if we weren't going to get him that. So no, but it was obviously most important thing is winning. All jokes aside, most important thing is winning. But you have a little second on the sideline there to realize that you're that close to it. And God is great, got us the ball back. Defense got to stop, and so we were able to get one more play to him.
So the 11th straight season with 1,000 receiving yards for Mike Evans. Obviously, Matthew, this is on the top of Baker Mayfield's mind. He spoke about it all week. It was really important, and they threw at the end of the game to make sure he got it.
It was a great scene, just absolutely great moment. It's funny. I was watching the game with Dev McCourty, and so we knew it was coming when they got the stop. Like, oh, they're clearly going to go to Mike Evans. They're not taking a knee. And Devin's like, man, if I'm defense, like, come on, let's double team him. Like, screw that. No, don't let him get it against you. You don't want that highlight, you know. And but they didn't, and they got it to Mike. And just seeing the all the Buccaneers crowd around him, that just the reaction of the teammates when he was able to get it. Just, you know, what an awesome moment. Mike Evans, one of the good guys in the NFL, so easy to see why he's so beloved by his teammates. That was cool. Baker Mayfield finishes as the 4th best quarterback in fantasy football, and it'll be really interesting to see sort of where we rank Baker. He got a lot more production from his legs this year than we've ever seen before. I mean, obviously the touchdown passes, he finished top 3 in the NFL in both passing touchdowns and passing yards, but still, like, had over 60 rushing yards in this game and continually got you more points with his legs this year. I expect Liam Cohen to be a very popular head coaching candidate this year. So, I mean, 2nd year in a row that he's going to kind of lose his OC, like possibly, potentially, like he lost Canales last year. And, like, are they just keeping it going? Like, Baker's going to be a fascinating guy in the offseason, but easy guy to root for, unbelievable season. And I think one of the things that has made Baker so good this year, and that you can sort of see the writing on the wall in the future, is the emergence of Jalen McMillan, who, like, we thought he was good coming out of Washington, Connor, but did you expect this?
No, not this. And the key with McMillan was that we said over the summer is we were excited about the preseason, but somebody would have to get hurt for him to have a real role. And Chris Godwin gets injured, which was really unfortunate this year. And McMillan was more ready than I think anybody could have expected. He's just been a model of consistency in this offense, Jay, that we don't know if Chris Godwin's going to be back with the Bucs next year. That'll be interesting, but McMillan's making a case that I don't know if they have to allocate a giant portion of the salary cap to bring Godwin back.
I agree.
Yep, no. And a huge moments for McMillan as well as the epic touchdown catch at the end. It is interesting with Baker.
That throw from that Baker, I mean, like, it was a great catch, but, like, it was like.
Yeah. It is interesting with Baker. I think that's a trend that's going to continue, is that quarterbacks who can use their legs just will continue to do so more, because it's such an advantage in the league now, the way that Brock Purdy has kind of used his legs more. I don't know why Jordan Love doesn't run a little bit more too. But Baker, I mean, he finishes the season with over 40 passing touchdowns as a division champ, so a great story.
You think about the emergence of McMillan, obviously, and how about Bucky Irving as well? Since Week 10, he's the 6th best running back in fantasy football on a points-per-game basis. And also, Bucky Irving will get a championship ring from Live at Noon on the Cock, 2-time defending champion of the League of Assholes. Just so you know, no big deal, just saying. But Bucky was drafted. Yahoo didn't like it, gave me a D.
No, they didn't. They didn't
gave
believe.
Me a D. They didn't believe. But we put it up on the locker room, and, you know, we rallied around it. I'm like the Dan Campbell.
Oh, is that right?
Of fantasy football. Yeah, rallying my troops.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. They get
more like the Thomas Brown.
Wow.
Jeez.
Wow. Thomas Brown hasn't won anything. Yeah, I have. It's super weird. It's super weird that, you know, Jay Croucher, who, you know, 3 years in a row has sort of fumbled it, you know, before you got to the goal line. You had a juggernaut team this year.
You did have a really good team.
And then you traded it all the way to Connor.
Yeah, shouldn't have done that. Well, it will take solace in the fact that you won the league, but you lost to the 2 people on this table. And so that will be.
In the regular season.
There will always be a stain. It will always be a stain.
Regular season champs.
Yeah. I'll remember that
when
I'm polishing both of my trophies. I'll be like, it's too bad I lost regular season as they polish those 2 trophies. I've now got bookends. It's very exciting.
Another NFC battle, the 49ers and the Cardinals. Cardinals score over 40 points in this game. Ride or die, right on time, Matthew. Kyler Murray, 242 yards and 4 touchdowns.
Yeah, never in doubt.
You love to see it. What a time for him to emerge.
Of course. Yeah, so useless. So frustrating. He finishes the year as QB 12, which didn't. If you drafted him as your ride or die, it didn't kill you, but not ideal. And what was so frustrating?
It's a slow death.
It was. It honestly was a slow death because he would have just enough of spike weeks where you're like, all right, now it's coming, and then he would disappear, and just the lack of the inconsistency around the passing touchdowns is just so weird. He had 7 different games with 20 or more fantasy points. Awesome. And then he had 7 games with under 15 fantasy points. Like, the highs were really high, but the lows were really low, and it was just super weird, which it's nothing that we've ever seen before. Like, you know, it was so bizarre, and obviously it trickled down to Trey McBride, who, you know, should have had a lot more touchdowns than he ended the season with as well. So we will aim to do better for next year's ride or die. Pressure is on, but yeah, I fully admit a loss. I take the L on this one. It did not work out.
Yep. A couple of rookie receivers had strong games in this one. Marvin Harrison goes 5 for 63 and a touchdown. Ricky Pearsall 6 for 69 and a touchdown. Seems like Pearsall is going to be a real piece of that offense next year. We'll see what happens with Deebo Samuel, obviously, and how Brandon Ayuk returns. But Marvin Harrison is going to be an interesting player to watch next year because he comes out as a generational wide receiver prospect. And right now, like if we redrafted, I mean, Brian Thomas and Malik Neighbors, they go ahead of him.
They do.
And maybe McConkey.
Long term, I'd say in like an actual NFL redraft, I'd say no.
Yes, in an actual NFL redraft, I'd say no. But like in a dynasty league,
dynasty league, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it is not a McConkulous statement to say that Ladd McConkey might go ahead of Marvin Harrison in a dynasty draft.
Makes sense.
Yeah, it sort of does. But I mean, what's weird is Harrison was fine. He wasn't great, but he wasn't a total disaster. But again, similar to Kyler Murray, it was just like he'd have these spike weeks and then disappear, as opposed to there was a floor every week with McConkey. There was a floor every week with Thomas. There was a floor every week that he was out there with Neighbors.
There's just these games like the Buffalo game where it's like, why does he look like Allen Robinson on these routes? And then I don't know if he's dealing with anything, but it was inconsistent offense overall, which makes you think that there still is plenty of upside. Certainly not giving up on Marvin Harrison.
Yeah, but finished as wide receiver 39, barely a top 40 play this year.
Too many
like on
dead
a points per
weeks.
game basis. Yeah, too many dead weeks. It's just so. Yeah, as a rookie season, I think it was fine. It's the problem is that there were so many other good rookie wide receivers, and he came in with such hype that I just don't know if it's a mechanics thing or it's an offense thing or it's
like
some sort of weird.
Yeah, the offense just felt stagnant at times. At cost, I will be in on Ricky Pearsall next year, I think.
Sure.
Depending if it gets, these hype trains get carried away and maybe, he goes too high. But I think at cost, Matthew, I'd be buying in now. I don't think Deebo Samuel is going to be back with this team next year.
No, I don't. And by the way, I'll also be in on cost at Jawan Jennings.
Yes.
Because I don't think he's going to be it'll be Brandon Ayuk.
Off an ACL.
Obviously Kittle and actually I think the 49er, Ayuk off the bad injury, Jennings and Pearsall not big names. And then McCaffrey, so many people are going to be so scared off of McCaffrey. I think, and Brock Purdy, no one ever gives respects to. So I think the Niners, weirdly, are going to be values across the board next season.
They're going to have a great offense again.
Yes,
they will. Just what the defense does.
Yep. Our next game, guys, the Chargers against the Raiders. Obviously, the Chargers were playing for better seeding after the Steelers lost, and Harbaugh had said that all week. We're playing a win. We're playing for the seeding. Herbert plays, obviously, a great game. 28-36, 346 yards, 2 touchdowns. He has the big rush, the big run, and then Ladd McConkey, Matthew, 95 yards receiving. He's been consistent. QJ, though, going nuclear was the story of this game.
I mean, right? So he finishes as a top 40 wide receiver in the season, wide receiver 37. It's worth noting 26% of his receiving yards on the season came in this one game. A 13 for 186 on 14 targets, a 40% target share from Justin Herbert. Yeah, QJ just went absolutely nuclear, but showed the kind of potential. I'm not saying I expect this moving forward, but it showed this is the guy that was a first-round pick, and it showed that potential. I will have Ladd McConkey ranked higher than Quentin Johnston next year, but I don't mind drafting him as a late-round flyer next year.
Yeah, he looked like 2008 Larry Fitzgerald out there, just the way he's moving. And it's not like this performance was, a few deep balls that he caught. He got 14 targets, caught 13 of them. If he's going to, we forget, he was, what was he, like pick 21 in the draft? Like, he was a very high draft pick. He came in with a lot of pedigree, has the terrible year last year, but gets in the end zone a ton and showed, great promise yesterday. Like, this could be a scary offense if he's going to play like this, and McConkey is what he is, and Herbert's, an MVP level type of quarterback. They're a dangerous team.
QJ was one of those guys that, like, obviously all sorts of physical tools, but I think one of the knocks on him was focus, was lack of consistency and focus, the drops. And so one of the things that Harbaugh's great at is coaching guys up, right? And getting them to believe, if they buy into the rah-rah Harbaugh stuff that he does. And I think if you're a young player like QJ is, that maybe you do. And so, like, I think that's a really good situation for him. Like, there are other teams that may have moved on more quickly, but they've shown patience with him, and at least it paid off in Week 18 for sure.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see what happens in the playoffs.
I mean, he came on our show at the Super Bowl last year and, seems just like a really solid person. From what we could glean from 9 minutes of chatting to him or whatever, but good for him that he had that performance.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't super solid because, like, you didn't take a picture and cut me out, half of it out of it and posted it. Maybe after today's performance, maybe you should.
Yeah.
The Redux interview at this year's Super Bowl?
I do believe I may have been sitting next to him, so there is a chance.
I'm sure you
I'll
were.
Scroll through the photo.
Yeah, I can't wait for that. I think they kill the Texans. So we're gonna.
It's good night, Texans. Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Texans have looked awful.
They've been sleepwalking into this postseason
for like 6 weeks, and so we'll talk about all the playoffs and get you set for if you're playing DFS, if in playoff pools, if you're betting on it. We'll have a show on Thursdays. We get you set for all of Wild Card Weekend. We'll do that throughout the playoffs, where we'll do kind of a preview show. And by the way, if you want to play playoff fantasy football, you can do so at guillotineleagues.com. By the way, we're doing postseason
you
NFL.
Own that company now,
I do own that company. It's a fantasy life company, and I own fantasy. I'm one of the owners of that.
So does Rotopat, by the way.
So does Rotopat. Absolutely owns it. Rotopat's crushing. But so does Josh Allen, Jamar Chase, and Joe Burrow. They also own Fantasy Life and Guillotine Leagues. They're proud investors of the company.
On the other side of this one, big target share for Jakobi Meyers and Brock Bowers. Jakobi 9-10, 123 and a touchdown. Brock Bowers finishes a phenomenal rookie season. He goes 4 catches, 50 yards and touchdown, assuming he's going to be the tight end 1 next year.
He is my tight end.
Good margin.
He is my tight end 1. I have him as a top 15 draft pick. I have him as kind of as a mid-tier round 2 kind of pick next year as well. I think the more interesting story, I mean, Bowers is awesome, but we've sort of known he was awesome, right? And like, this isn't a surprise. He sets the rookie record for receptions this year. But how about Jakobi Meyers, who very quietly finishes the season as wide receiver 20 on a points per game basis? Like, Jakobi Meyers is just one of those guys that, friend of the podcast, by the way, we had Jakobi on the show, but never gets any love. No one ever was excited to draft Jakobi Meyers. I feel like he always drops in drafts because people are like, he had that one year where he could never score a touchdown, and he's been on, New England and Las Vegas, so he's never in like
not a loud player.
Not a loud player. Hasn't been on great teams, great NFL teams, and so. But yeah, Jakobi Meyers had a 25% target share, at least a 25% target share in 10 of the final 12 games, and whether Antonio Pierce is back, whoever's new, like, he's going to be a weapon for the Raiders, obviously.
All right, let's take a look at the wild card schedule here. Getting ready for the week. Obviously, both the Chiefs and the Lions are on the bye. The Saturday games, we're going to kick things off with the Chargers and Texans, followed by the AFC North. Third time, obviously, these teams will meet this year, the Steelers and the Ravens. Sunday will kick things off with the Broncos being 8.5-point underdogs going to Buffalo. Packers, Eagles, let's not forget that's a rematch all the way back to the Brazil game that was on Peacock. Yep. Your Commanders, Matthew.
Yeah, it's Victory Monday.
They take us home on Sunday. I'll give you a clap for that.
Thank you very much.
Monday,
I'm excited about
Rams.
that, by the way.
As you should be.
I mean, like.
Oh, Lattimore Evans.
Yeah, exactly. Hopefully Marshawn Lattimore is back and can take on Mike Evans because he seems to get in Mike Evans' head. The other thing is, I'll just say, from a Commander's point of view, I wanted the Buccaneers. I think of all the teams in the NFC that they could have faced, I feel like they match up best with the Buccaneers. Like, the Buccaneers sometimes play down. I think their defense is a struggle. Baker's playing at an elite level, but if Lattimore comes there and shuts down Evans, maybe it makes their offense a little bit more one-dimensional. I prefer to go against the Buccaneers defense than any of the other potential defenses that the Commanders could have faced. So, not saying they're going to win, but listen, they're only 3-point underdogs. Like, they got a shot in this one.
I think they will win. We'll get to that.
Okay, great. Hello. Oh, I like that. Are you surprised the Steelers are 10-point underdogs to the Ravens? It's a divisional matchup. It's Mike Tomlin.
Yeah, those Flowers will make that a bit interesting. Ravens' offense kind of stuck in mud quietly against the Browns.
Yeah. But the Steelers' offense. I mean, that's why.
They need that defensive line to wreck that game if they want to have a chance.
Yes. Anyway, I was surprised. 10 struck me as that's a big line
any playoff game.
For any playoff game, especially a divisional one, especially the Steelers always play tough. Like whether they lose, they'll probably lose, but I just don't see Mike Tomlin getting blown out. Just generally speaking.
I'd rather take the Steelers at the spread than the Ravens. So.
Yeah.
We're going to take our first break. When we're back, we got Weekend Warriors coming up right after this.
Hey, Bo, can you tell us what it was like I saw you circle the stadium and give high five to the crowd, just the whole clincher and everything.
Yeah, well, I learned I got to run a little bit more during the week because that's a long little lap. I was a little tired at the end, but the fans deserve it. They've been, it's been a long time coming, and they deserve it.
Weekend Warriors, that was Bo Nix. He fits the bill on the season. 26 of 29 for 321 passing yards and 4 touchdowns yesterday. Also ran for 47 yards. He is QB2 for your Week 18 fantasy leaders, only topped by Bryce Young, Matthew, and not only him, but Cortland Sutton gets 98 yards and a touchdown. Marvin Mims, who's had a strong finish to the season, gets 51 yards and 2 touchdowns. Arrow pointing up for the Broncos offense.
19 or more fantasy points for Marvin Mims in 3 of the final 5 games. He has 5 touchdowns. He was our desperation play, or by ours, I really mind me. He was my desperation play on fantasy football pregame. Glad it worked out. First 1,000-yard season for Sutton since 2019. Bo Nix finishes the year as QB8 in fantasy. And this might be the greatest quarterback class. I mean, again, it's 1 year, but this might be the greatest quarterback class, the rookies this year. Like all the guys, all first rounders, look like okay, they can play.
They showed something.
Yeah, I mean, like Caleb's the one that you have the most questions about.
Which is wild.
Which is crazy to think about. But Bo Nix, 7 different games with 3 or more passing touchdowns and 0 interceptions. That's the most by a rookie in NFL history. And he's not going to win, but Sean Payton deserves some credit for Coach of the Year. He deserves to be in that conversation.
Yep.
He's done a great job.
Yep, he'll get some down ballot consideration. I thought Nix was excellent yesterday. I just worried that wasn't kind of a real game of football with the amount of players that the Chiefs were missing. But he was making all the throws, and it wasn't just dink and dunk stuff. He was making throws down the field. He looked really good. And yeah, I don't think they're going to beat Buffalo, and we'll get to that game. But it could be a bit of a scary matchup for the Bills offense going up against that.
I don't think they're going to be an easy out.
No, I don't think so either. We'll cover that in the last segment. A lot to talk about with the Broncos traveling to Buffalo.
Yeah.
Our next weekend warrior here, Jay, Derrick Henry, 20 carries, 138 yards, and 2 touchdowns. We knew this was a game that Baltimore had to win, so it was no surprise the King was rolling once again. Just an unbelievable season at his age.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see where he gets drafted next year, because it feels like this is now year 4 of predicting that this is going to be the end of Derrick Henry, and he might just be a mutant who defies the natural aging curve for running backs, because he doesn't look any different than he did in 2019.
First off, it's not that he might be a mutant.
Yeah,
he is a mutant.
Yes.
Yeah. He is not genetically like the rest of us. Yeah. And by the rest of us, I mean everyone else on planet Earth. But I also do think that this is the situation just in Baltimore and just the threat of Lamar. Lamar is just so good that it just opens up run lanes that just he's never seen before. And it's one of those things that you sort of wonder, what could have it been like if he, if he didn't have Ryan Tannehill as his quarterback for much of his career, but had somebody elite like
Ryan
Lamar
Tannehill
Jackson.
led them to the 1 seed, now getting strays.
I mean, whatever.
Wearing a green undershirt.
Ryan Tannehill was fine, but you know what I mean? Lamar is one of the greatest of all time.
Yeah.
I mean, he's an elite.
I'm not going to be telling my grandkids about Ryan
sure.
Tannehill and the year he had a 117 passer rating. Strangely, when he got traded to the Titans.
Exactly.
Yeah, some moments. I always liked Tannehill.
Yeah, Tannehill. Same. But I'm just saying, anyway, I mean, it does feel like every single year you're at his age and his usage, there's a fall off coming, and then every year all he does is defy expectations. He was on the preseason love list, though. I will say that about Derrick Henry. He was. He was also on Live at Noon at the Cock, the championship-winning team. Yeah,
Good.
just so you know.
Yeah, you want a Pacheco over him. Anyway, who's the next guy coming?
But
Geno
I drafted
Smith.
Derrick Henry.
Geno Smith is our next guy. He had
Whatever I muse about out loud doesn't matter.
No,
Results are what matters.
Archived.
And Derrick Henry wound up on my team.
Geno Smith had $6
Derrick.
million of incentives on the line. He has a big day, 20 of 27, 223 yards, gets him over that passing yard incentive, 4 touchdowns. He had a completion percentage incentive here. It all checks out for Geno, who takes many more millions home.
Yeah, you guys are laughing at my Giants 80-1 NFC East bet. I didn't tell you about this one, but I had a bet on Geno Smith to lead the league in interceptions at 80-1 as well. Comes up 1 short because he didn't have an interception in the final 2 weeks. I don't know how he didn't throw a pick against Chicago. How were there no picks in that game? That was a disgrace. Anyway, Geno found the right time to screw me out of that bet.
You didn't have to admit that, so I respect you.
Yeah, well, it's getting close.
The Giants one I'll never respect.
No, but hashtag respect, though, for owning up to that one.
I mean, he's done that. He's going to come back next year as the starting quarterback, I assume.
You would assume. Yeah, it'd be very odd in this market to give away a good starting quarterback.
He's got a ton of weapons, despite Tyler Lockett's impending alleged retirement.
Being pushed into retirement.
He's a mid-tier QB, too. He doesn't run enough. But I think what's important for our purposes is that he is good enough and throws at an elite enough level that it keeps the fantasy relevance of JSN and DK Metcalf very high.
Yes.
Aaron Rodgers saving his best for last, guys. Chasing milestones, 23 of 36, 274 yards, 4 touchdowns. 4 It's like the Dolphins looked up at the scoreboard of the Denver game at halftime of this one, and they were like,
well, Tyreek Hill literally said they did that.
Literally opted out. But we'll get to Tyreek Hill in just a second. But for the Jets, Devontae Adams catches 6 passes, 88 yards, and a touchdown. Tyler Conklin gets number 500, though.
I saw that. Adams. But unlike A.J. Brown, didn't throw it into the stands. Gave it to Aaron Rodgers.
Very delicate with the football.
Very smart about it as well. Yeah, Lazard had a big game. It just shows you what could be possible for the Jets if they bring all these guys back.
Rex Ryan interviewing tomorrow.
By the way, I know people think that's somewhat of a joke.
Well, that's the Jets. It's not.
No. By the way, the Jets could do a lot worse than Rex Ryan as your head coach.
Yeah, they requested Vance Joseph.
There you go.
And Arthur Smith.
And I know, I saw that.
Yeah.
And Ron Rivera.
They're actively trying to do worse than Rex Ryan.
They interviewed Ron Rivera.
Yes.
That would be much worse.
Yes, Arthur Smith, Vance Joseph.
All of it.
On and on it goes. You can do worse.
Here's my pro Rex Ryan argument.
Yeah.
Which is, my pro Rex Ryan argument is that being the head coach of an NFL team is mostly about being basically you're the CEO of an organization.
Sure.
And if you hire, Dan Campbell's a great example of it. If you hire the right coordinators. That's the thing. Rex Ryan is really good, I think, at being the CEO of an NFL team. He handles the press really well. Players love him. Players love him.
Yep.
People love him. I worked with him at ESPN. He's a great guy.
100% approval rating.
100% approval rating. People love Rex. That's all I'm just saying. People are like, I'm just telling you, Jets could do much worse than Rex Ryan.
Rex Ryan produced the best moments in Jets history since the name of Super Bowl.
Literally.
2010 going to Foxborough, 14-2.
Yes.
The biggest question with Rex, and you already said this, Matthew, is just what is the offensive staff? And nobody knows. It's hard to judge that interview without knowing the offensive staff, which is the key. An offensive staff that is now going through it a little bit after yesterday's theatric is Miami. Mike McDaniel and general manager Chris Greer will be back, but Tyreek Hill doesn't plan to be. Listen to this.
This is my first time I haven't been in the playoffs, man, so I mean, for me, like I said, man, I just got to do what's best for me and my family, dog. If that's here or that's wherever the case may be, man, I'm finna open that door for myself, dog. As I'm opening the door, like I'm out, bro. So it was great playing here, but at the end of the day, bro, I got to do what's best for for my career and what's best. Because I'm too much of a competitor to be, just
Does that mean you're
out there.
Mean you thinking about leaving here?
If it is, hey, yes.
Things are going well.
All right, I got an idea.
Tyreek Hill to the Jets.
Tyreek Hill to the Jets. Aaron Rodgers comes back, give him the weapon that he needs. Like, who stopped Tyreek Hill? Devontae Adams, Garrett Wilson, and Alan Lazard.
You got Bryce
Who's stopping that? Who's stopping that quartet?
God, maybe.
Yes.
God, yeah, something will
some
stop.
curse.
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers.
These are the kind of things you should talk about on Badlands.
Yeah, well,
because we're going to talk about it on Worse Lands.
We might. I know you guys got the ratings.
Yeah, 1,000%. Well, Tyreek Hill doesn't sound like things are going well for him in Miami. I will say, for those of us that produce content around the NFL, certainly in the offseason, this will be a fun storyline to follow.
I implore everyone to go watch the full 3-minute clip of that or whatever, because it is ridiculous. Like, it starts off very innocuous, and then he's just like, I'm out. I'm done. It just kind of happens.
And then it seems like midway through he just sort of realizes what he said, but then doesn't want to back down from it. So it's just it's a little bit of like, you said the quiet part out loud. Like I think that's probably genuine. We probably didn't expect to like sort of blurt it out in that moment. But it's not good if you're a Dolphins fan, if you're Mike McDaniel, if you're Chris Greer. I have no idea how Chris Greer is still in that job. It makes no sense for me. I don't understand why the Jaguars kept Trent Baalke.
Unbelievable. Both of them. Unbelievable. 9 lives. Maybe more.
Oh, 1,000. It's like, so I feel bad for my friends that are Dolphins fans and Jaguar fans. The state of Miami, other than Tampa, other than the state of Florida, it's not going well.
They have Fan. It's producer Steven.
Yeah.
I believe that's it.
Yeah,
he deserves better. He deserves better.
Yeah, Finn's down.
To close out Weekend Warriors, DJ Moore, 9 of 10, 86 yards, and a touchdown. Hopefully better days ahead for him and Caleb Williams next year. Yeah,
we'll see. I mean, DJ Moore, he just has such a high floor. That talent can't be denied. Hopefully the Bears kind of get a little bit more real on offense next season, and he can thrive with Caleb. Terry McLaurin has a great day. I was surprised a little bit that they pulled Jaden Daniels, but I guess he was getting dominated by Micah Parsons. They just wanted to get him out, and they win the game anyway.
He said his legs were sore, and by the way, he was bad.
Yeah.
I mean, real talk. Like he was not good in the first half. The offense looked much better under Mariota. Obviously, I think it was just right. Again, maybe he was just a little bit sore, and for whatever they wanted, a different look. But I've never been the biggest Marcus Mariota fan, but he played awesome in the second half last year. Credit to him and the Commanders, and glad they got the win. Glad they are the 6th seed as well. Terry McLaurin, just a monster season, finishes the year as wide receiver 14. Just sort of shows the potential he's always had if you got him a quarterback. And finally, Washington got him a quarterback. I think it's time to see who's eating good.
Or who will be eating
good. This is served by our friends at Applebee's, of course. And the Tennessee Titans are officially on the clock, Connor Rodgers. You see it there on your screen. Titans, Browns, Giants. Patriots are at 4. Giants should be much worse than 3, honestly. Gerard Mayo, what a beautiful gift. Shades of Lovie Smith on the way out. Are you going to fire me? Well, watch me fire your first-round pick.
My secret weapon, Joe Milton.
Yeah, exactly. Jags at 5, and so on and so forth. So, listen, Connor, you do a ton of mock drafts. Is there one already up? Do you have?
It's coming soon.
It's coming.
I wrote
soon.
one in the middle of the season, but the draft order has been turbulent and just chaotic.
So the Titans are on the clock. What are they doing?
I think it'll be quarterback. This quarterback class is not your prototypical multiple guys going in the top 10, but I just think the supply is not really great. The demand is high. Rand Carthen, he has to get a guy for this offense right now. And when you look at the Callahan family there is signs that this can be a good offense with their identity, but they need a guy. And I think it would be Cam Ward. I'm not sold it would be Shedeur Sanders. I think Cam Ward's playmaking ability would have him go number 1 overall. But, man, the conversations around this I think it's going to be a mystery almost all the way up until the week of the draft.
Yep. Number 2 pick, which is maybe the most fascinating one because of the Browns' quarterback situation with Deshaun Watson. Who do you think they go with?
In theory, you would just think, hey, you got to take a quarterback, and Shedeur Sanders is the only other guy, assuming Drew Aller doesn't declare after the college football playoff. But I'm going to go Travis Hunter here. You get an elite cornerback, a guy that could also play offense at wide receiver. I think the Browns, maybe they explore the pro market instead. Maybe you do a year Kirk Cousins. I know it's not great, but I don't know if they want to reach on a quarterback that they feel isn't deserving of the pick when they can get a superstar player in Travis Hunter.
Okay, and then let's go to 3. The Giants are on the clock. Drew Lock has looked very good, but he's probably not their quarterback of the future.
Probably not, and this feels like the Titans situation, but worse, where they have to take a guy. Like Joe Shane and Brian Dable will be back if they can't kick the can down the road or else they're getting themselves fired.
Right.
Shedeur Sanders ends up in New York. We'll see what Brian Dable could do with him. Great news with him is he comes into an offense that has Malik Neighbors. Malik Neighbors going to get 20 targets a game.
And it seems like he wants to be there.
I think
that's one of the issues.
I think that would be a sign-off for
Deion
for sure.
I think Deion is like, hey, Get yourself to New York.
Sure, let's do it.
Let's do it.
DraftKings Sportsbook is the #1 place to bet touchdowns, and new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Download the app and use promo code Barry when you sign up. DraftKings Sportsbook.
The crown is yours.
The crown is yours.
Look at that.
Last call. Here's the wild card weekend odds board. Jay, what are you looking at on this one?
Looking at the Commanders and Matthew's green undershirt, +3.
Let's go.
I'm kind of rattled that this is +3. All season, the market has traded the Commanders like 1.5 to 2 points better than your average team, and the Bucs is about an average to 1 point better than average team. So I don't understand why this line is 3 even when you bake in home field. I think Jaden Daniels is the best quarterback in the NFC, and I think he's the best quarterback in this playoff field. I think he gets it done. I think the Commanders beat the Bucs outright.
Matthew, what about you? You love hearing that. Look at that smile.
I'm excited. I might wear my green T-shirt more often. I'm taking the Chargers -2.5. I think the Texans have sleepwalked into this playoffs. They have not looked impressive at all. They're banged up. Jim Harbaugh's on a mission. And I've been unimpressed so far with the coaching of Houston this year. After last year when we all loved them, it just feels like the Texans' offense has been somewhat stuck in the mud. And so I think the Chargers go in there. Give me the Chargers -2.5. I think they go in there and they kill them. I really do. I think they crush them.
I'm going to take the Broncos +8.5. I get it. The Bills look awesome. If this isn't the year for the Bills, you wonder when is it with the way their offense is played. The Broncos have to go to Buffalo for a playoff game for a rookie quarterback and Bo Nix. That's a tough spot. This is a lot of points, and defense travels. And I think the Denver defense will travel. I'm not going to say they're going to stop Buffalo, but I don't think this will be a shootout territory where you get worried about Bo Nix and the Denver offense. I think Sean Payton will call a really, really good game, and the Broncos at least hang around.
Yeah, and by the way, the over-under in that one is 47.5. I would take the under there. I agree with you. This feels like a grinded-out game.
It's not going to be easy.
Not going to be easy for either team. Like, the Bills will get up for it. That's at home.
Right.
Probably bad weather or snow, cold. Just doesn't feel like it's going to be like, a shootout. Feels like this is a bunch of punts, a bunch of running, and ultimately they win it in the fourth quarter.
Yep, no, I agree. It'll be interesting, like Bo Nix going head-to-head with Josh Allen scares you, but you hope that this is a game defined by Nick Bonito and Patrick Surtain and Zach Allen and the Broncos defense.
Yeah. 1,000%, man.
Time to sleep.
What?
Your adrenaline kicked you through today.
Yeah, well, I got some diet soda. Not gonna lie about that. And the green T-shirt gave me power. Listen, it's closing time. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. For Jay Crouch and Connor Rodgers, I'm Matthew Berry. We'll see you later this week. Peace out. Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and Rotoworld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched. Or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest Rotoworld fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.